you ever experienced that truly terrifying moment where you're standing in front of someone and your brain just hits pause?
Oh, yeah, like a total system crash.
Right. A
Yeah.
total crash. But it happens right at the exact second your mouth is supposed to hit play.
Yes. The worst timing possible.
It really is. You're just standing there feeling your face get incredibly hot. And you can like practically hear the dial-up modem sounds just screeching inside your own head.
Agonizing. And it feels like it lasts for hours, even if it's only 2 seconds.
Exactly.
It
Well,
should-
today we are hacking that exact biological freeze response. We're doing a deep dive into a masterclass on conversation confidence.
Which is something we all need, honestly.
Totally. Now, this is sourced from the English Leap podcast.
Yeah.
And originally, this audio was designed for English language learners who were trying to overcome the fear of speaking a second language.
Right, but the thing is, and this became incredibly obvious as we dug into the material, these principles are completely universal.
Yeah, they really are. Because, I mean, the underlying psychology of social panic, it doesn't care if you're speaking a second language or your native tongue.
No, it doesn't. Your brain doesn't know the difference. Whether you find, networking events or office small talk or just mingling at a party deeply intimidating, the actual mechanics of why your brain locks up are identical.
So what's our roadmap for this deep dive?
Well, we're going to deconstruct the mechanics of human connection. We'll start with why your nervous system betrays you in the first place. And then we'll go all the way through to some highly specific techniques you can use to walk away from a conversation without making it super awkward.
Which is basically the holy grail of socializing.
Oh, absolutely.
But to get there, I think we have to start with the root cause of all this anxiety. The source material spends a lot of time on this phenomenon of, walking into a room, hearing fluent, confident speakers, and just completely shrinking into yourself.
Right, because you feel like you just do not belong.
Yeah. And they call it the ranking mind. What exactly is that?
So, our brains are essentially running on ancient hardware. From an evolutionary standpoint, walking into a new tribe meant you had to figure out the social hierarchy immediately.
Like who's the boss, who's a threat, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Your survival literally depended on it. So today, when you walk into a modern networking event or a crowded party, your biological wiring just kicks right in.
That's wild. So we're basically scanning the room like cavemen.
We really are. You start automatically ranking yourself against strangers to gauge threats. You tell yourself, oh, they sound smarter or they have a better job, and your nervous system just goes into overdrive.
You stop seeing a room full of humans and start seeing a panel of judges.
Precisely. It transforms the entire interaction into a high-stakes performance.
It feels exactly like logging into a really complex multiplayer video game. And you just mistakenly assume that absolutely everyone else in the lobby knows all the secret cheat codes.
That is a perfect analogy. Yes.
And you're just standing in the corner of the map, basically hoping nobody notices you've completely forgotten the basic controls.
Right. But that illusion that everyone else has the cheat codes, that's the biggest barrier to entry in any social setting.
Because we assume confident people just don't feel fear.
Exactly. But confident people do not possess some magical lack of anxiety. They don't have an absence of fear. They have simply learned to override that ranking mind.
How so?
Because they realize that half the time, the person sitting across from you, the one you think has it all figured out, is just as consumed by their own internal monologue as you are.
Oh, wow. So they're busy obsessing over their own perceived flaws, too.
Totally. The source makes a really great point here. While you are agonizing over your sentence structure or, whether you sounded weird saying hello, the other person is obsessing over their own awkward smile.
Or worrying about what they're going to say next.
Right. Everyone is basically just mashing buttons on their controller, hoping for the best.
That is actually so comforting. So once you understand the cognitive load that the other person is carrying, the entire dynamic of talking to a stranger just becomes lighter.
It does. You drop that immense pressure to sound impressive. You realize that a conversation is not a performance where you're being graded.
Right.
It's simply two people trying to establish a baseline of genuine connection. The goal isn't to be flawless. The goal is to be present.
Okay, but let's be totally realistic for a second. You can tell yourself, I'm not performing, I'm just connecting all day long in front of the mirror.
Sure.
But when someone actually walks up to you at that party and asks the classic, so how was your week? The biological freeze response still happens.
Oh, the cortisol spikes.
Yeah. Your mind goes completely blank, and you deliver the ultimate conversation killer. A one-word answer. Good.
The dreaded dead end. It's so painful.
It is. So how do we override that instinct in the actual moment?
Well, the source offers a highly proactive approach. It involves building a mental conversation toolbox.
A toolbox, okay.
Yeah, so before you even enter a social situation, you do a quick mental inventory. You ask yourself, what is one mildly interesting thing that happened this week?
Like what?
Like, did I try a new restaurant? Did I watch a weird documentary? Did something funny happen on my commute? You bring two or three mundane but specific things to the front of your mind.
I have a bit of pushback on this, though.
Let's hear it.
If I'm sitting in my car before an event, literally cataloging talking points on my phone, doesn't that run the massive risk of turning a natural chat
Mm.
into a rehearsed, robotic monologue?
I can see why you'd think that.
Because, like, how do you stay genuine if you're basically pulling from a script in your head?
So you have to think of it less like a script and more like a sports warm-up.
Okay, well, warm up.
Right. An athlete would never sprint straight onto the field completely cold, right? They stretch to prevent an injury. Making these mental notes is your social stretching.
Oh, I see.
You're not memorizing lines to recite word for word. You're simply giving your brain a cognitive anchor.
So when someone asks you a completely standard question, your brain doesn't have to scramble through your entire week while under the pressure of someone staring at you.
Exactly. So when they ask, how was your weekend? Instead of your brain panicking and shutting down, you already have that little memory of the new cafe queued up.
Which reduces the cognitive load.
Yes, it stops the cortisol spike and allows you to actually participate in the volley of conversation. You're lowering the barrier to entry.
That makes a lot of sense. It builds fluency and confidence simultaneously because you aren't hunting for a topic while also trying to manage your anxiety. You have a safety net.
Precisely, you have a safety net.
But let's look at the worst case scenario. Say you didn't stretch, you didn't prep your mental toolbox.
It happens to all of us.
You find yourself standing next to someone, the silence is deafening, and you have absolutely nothing prepared. What then?
This is where situational awareness becomes your most powerful tool. The source highlights that sometimes the very best conversation starters require zero preparation.
Wait, really? Zero?
Zero. Because they're sitting right in front of you.
Oh, right. There is this highly specific and, frankly, brilliant anecdote in the source about this.
The coffee shop line.
Yes. So the speaker is waiting in this notoriously long line at a coffee shop. And instead of pulling out their phone to pretend to read emails, which, let's be honest, is what we all do to avoid awkwardness,
Oh, 100%.
they just turn to the person next to them and say, wow, it feels like we're waiting for concert tickets, not coffee.
It's so simple, but the underlying mechanics of why that specific line is so effective are just fascinating.
Break that down for us. Why does that work so well?
It demonstrates that you do not need profound topics or incredibly complex, witty banter to start a conversation. You just need to tap into shared immediate reality.
Because it relies completely on the environment.
Yeah.
We're both in the same crowded room, dealing with the same slow line, listening to the same loud music.
Exactly. By stating an observation about the shared environment, you are drastically lowering the stakes. You aren't interrogating them.
Right, because asking a stranger, what do you do for a living, immediately puts a massive burden on them to summarize their identity.
Yes, it's actually quite demanding. But commenting on the slow coffee line creates an instant microtribe. It's an us versus the environment dynamic.
Oh, I love that. A microtribe.
Yeah, it forms a temporary bond without demanding any personal vulnerability.
You're just tossing a low-stakes observation into the space between you to see if they catch it. It proves that small talk isn't just meaningless, vapid filler.
It really isn't.
It's a critical functional tool for breaking the ice and establishing safety.
And while establishing that safety is the crucial first step, maintaining the momentum requires enduring a certain amount of friction.
Ah, the clunky
The
phase.
very clunky phase.
Because opening the door is one thing, but keeping the conversation going initially feels incredibly awkward.
Mhm.
The source uses this vivid imagery of your words having training wheels.
Yes. When you actively start trying to build these conversational muscles, you're careful, you're speaking slowly, and you are absolutely terrified of falling over.
We all instinctively want the life hack to just skip that awkward phase.
Of course we do. But if we look at the neuroplasticity of skill acquisition, that friction is a completely non-negotiable step. You cannot bypass it.
So you just have to suffer through it.
Kind of, yeah. Small talk is often exhausting at first because your social muscles are literally aching from exertion. You're overthinking every micro-expression and every single word choice.
But the ache means the muscle is growing.
Exactly. The source shares a philosophy that perfectly encapsulates this. They say, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough.
That's a great mindset shift.
It really is. Every time you slip up, every time there is a heavy silence or use the wrong phrase, you are stretching the boundaries of your comfort zone.
So the faster you accumulate those minor social mistakes, the faster your brain realizes that an awkward silence is not a fatal threat.
Exactly. It's like exposure therapy.
So confidence isn't about never failing or never having a conversational lull. It's about realizing that the temporary awkwardness of a failed joke or a clumsy sentence actually doesn't hurt nearly as much as the isolation of never trying to connect at all.
Beautifully put. You build resilience to the awkwardness, and once you stop obsessing over your own perceived clumsiness, your cognitive resources are finally freed up.
Right, because you stop focusing inward on your own performance and you finally have the bandwidth to focus outward on the other person.
Which brings us to the real turning point in the source material.
Yes. Once you survive that training wheels phase, you unlock a deeper level of conversational fluency. The dynamic shifts entirely from speaking to impress to speaking to express.
And the key to that shift isn't about talking more or having better stories.
No, it's not.
It's about a concept they call listening with intent.
Let's talk about that because most people in standard casual interactions are merely listening to reply.
Oh, definitely. They're treating the other person's sentences as an obstacle.
Yes. They're just waiting for the mouth across of them to stop moving so they can deploy whatever anecdote they have queued up in their own head.
It is the conversation equivalent of just waiting for your turn at the microphone.
Exactly. But listening with intent means listening to actually understand the mechanics of what the person is feeling. The source uses this brilliant phrase to describe this emotional intelligence. They say it's about reading the room, not just the dictionary.
Reading the room, not just the dictionary, that gets right to the heart of it. Communication is not about exchanging perfectly constructed, grammatically flawless sentences.
Right.
It is about the transfer of shared meaning. And to prove to the other person that you are actually engaged in that transfer, the source recommends a highly practical psychological tool.
Mirroring.
Yes, mirroring.
I love this part. Mirroring is such a fascinating hack because it takes almost zero original thought, but it yields massive results.
It really does.
Like instead of just nodding and saying cool or wow when someone finishes a story, you literally mirror back a piece of what they just said.
Right. So if someone says, I finally took that trip to Italy last month, it was exhausting but amazing, you just gently bounce back, so you finally made it to Italy.
Why does that work so incredibly well?
The reason humans respond so positively to mirroring comes down to psychological safety. When you mirror someone's words, you are providing undeniable proof that you care enough to process their reality.
You're validating their experience.
Exactly. You aren't immediately hijacking the conversation to talk about your own trip to Italy. You are lingering in their reality for a moment longer.
And it takes all the pressure off you too. You don't have to invent a brilliant follow-up question immediately.
Right. You just reflect their reality back to them.
Which usually prompts them to expand on it naturally. Like, yeah, I made it to Italy and let me tell you about the food. It allows the conversation to find a natural rolling rhythm.
And when you establish that rhythm, something remarkable happens with the silences.
They stop being scary.
Yes. When people feel seen and validated through active mirroring, the pauses in the conversation stop feeling like terrifying voids that need to be frantically filled. They become natural resting points.
It becomes less of a rigid tennis match where you're slamming the ball back and forth and more of a shared stroll.
I love that, a shared stroll. But a shared stroll eventually has to end, though.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Even the most amazing, fluent, perfectly mirrored conversations run their course. Which brings us to the final and arguably most anxiety-inducing skill we need to cover today.
The graceful exit.
The graceful exit.
It is the most neglected aspect of communication training. We spend all our energy learning how to open doors and completely ignore how to close them.
We have all been trapped in that internal panic, right?
Yeah.
The chat is going in circles. You have exhausted the weather, the coffee, the weekend plans.
Everything.
And your internal monologue is just screaming, how do I vanish from this situation without making it weird, sounding rude, or destroying the rapport we just spent 20 minutes building?
Think of a conversation like a trapeze act. Okay.
You don't just abruptly let go of the bar mid-swing because you are tired. You have to swing back to the platform so the other person can catch the bar safely.
Oh, that's a brilliant analogy. You can't just drop the bar and walk away.
Exactly.
And the source provides some incredibly practical scripts for tossing that bar back safely. You don't have to fake an emergency phone call or, pretend you need to go to the bathroom.
No, please don't do that.
Right. You can use definitive, warm statements like, "It has been so great hearing about your project. I'm going to go grab another coffee." Or, "I want to make sure I say hi to a few other folks, but it was really wonderful catching up."
The psychology behind those scripts relies on the recency effect.
What's that?
It's the psychological tendency to remember the final moments of an interaction most vividly. By using a definitive closing statement paired with a warm compliment, you are intentionally taking control of the ending to ensure a positive final impression.
You aren't fleeing the conversation, you're landing the plane. You are closing the loop. Confident people start conversations with warmth, but they end them with grace.
I love that. True confidence isn't just about knowing what to say. It's knowing when the interaction has reached its natural expiration date and having the courage to pause, smile, and walk away with respect.
And honestly, it is a relief